and we had a little mix-up about equipment, so I had to just talk for a little bit that evening, and I was not able to show you a video that I wanted you to see, as well as my PowerPoint. Consequently, after that, I was supposed to be there in October, and then that freak snowstorm hit, so then that stopped us. So here I am finally tonight. As long as the power stays on, we're going to be in good shape. So I'm very glad to be here. My name is Dan Hromada, and I am the Cleveland chapter leader for Act for America. Act for America is the nation's largest grassroots national security movement, and we truly are grassroots. I went to Washington myself to meet like-minded people and to see as regular Joes like myself that are involved. Our purpose and mission is to combat radical Islam and the spread of Sharia law. We have 875 chapters now around the world, most of them, of course, in the States, and about 289,000 members worldwide. Now, a member means you sign up for their emails, you get them regularly, you share them with people, and like any organization, they need money, so you know, at some point in time, if you find it in your heart to donate money to them, by all means do it. They're good people, they're got a very good purpose. I do as well, besides doing everything else I'm doing. So, but that's up to you. This is Brigitte Gabriel. You've probably seen her on Fox News from time to time. She's on quite a bit with Hannity. She started Act for America 2007 with 40 people. So a crowd like this, or maybe a little bit smaller, in the basement of her home. Now we have those numbers that we talked about, 875 chapters, 289,000 members. That's me last year at the Washington National Conference with my hero, and should be the Commander-in-Chief, Alan West.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, war on terror. If you listen to President Obama, and this is not, by the way, this is not about Obama. This is not about the Democrats. This is some problem that affects both parties. So I'll make that up totally clear up front. Although the problem is significantly worse with the current administration. If you listen to President Obama, he said the war on terror, we have Al Qaeda on the run. Well, they're on the run all right. They're all across the Middle East and Northern Africa and Central Africa. Killing Christians at record pace, and other Muslims as well. Oh, there's much more than that. We have the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which is known as the OIC. They are the 56 Muslim countries, the leaders of those countries, and the Palestinian Authority. The Muslim Brotherhood, which most of this is going to feature on, and something known as stealth or civilization jihad that's happening in our country. And of course, political correctness. So I'm going to go through this tonight and show you how this is all happening. I have a movie that I've been showing around town, from Westlake down to Medina to Menor, and now here, all this different Tea Parties and Republican groups, Jihad in America, the Grand Deception. This is done by Steve Emerson, the Investigative Project on Terrorism. Before I get into it, in case anybody has to leave here early this evening, I brought a couple flyers in on the back, and one's a 4-page handout which goes into detail about some of the things we're going to talk about. One of the bills and state laws that we're trying to pass is being introduced by Matt Lynch, by the way, and I'll get into that. But also there's a business card back there. Please take the business card. I don't have a sign up for mailing to get on the mailing list this evening, and it's done purposely because what happens is I learned the hard way. I go home, look at a sheet of paper, I can't read everybody's writing. So please, if you take the card, do your own homework. At some point, I would love for you to sign up on my mailing list. At least you'll stay in touch. We have meetings in Brecksville and Parma. I get it. You're not going to drive over there necessarily. But to stay in touch, email, it's a wonderful thing these days. So on that business card as well are there 6 or 7 different websites. And one of the websites is the gentleman that made this video that I'm about to show you. So just give me a second here and I'll get it going.
In 2011,
revolution swept the Middle East, but this seemingly faraway turmoil has cast a long shadow, because the very same political party whose member assumed power in June 2012 in Egypt has also been setting up front groups 5,000 miles away. For decades now, the Ikhwan of the Muslim Brotherhood have operated secretly behind the scenes in America. Their influence reaches from the halls of academia, to Hollywood and the media, even to law enforcement, and to the highest levels of political power.
Their dream is the creation of an Islamic state. Their utopia is having the law be Sharia. So their strategy in America, I believe, is to use America's freedoms and liberties in order to achieve that dream.
If they want to place their real agenda on the table and say this is what we stand for, then they're welcome in the political arena. Let them debate the caliphate in the American political system.
لكن لازم يعرف أن الإسلامي يؤمن بأن الكذب في المصالح جائز.
Now that the United States government has acknowledged formally resuming contact with Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood, how much do we really know about this shadowy organization's activities here in the U.S.?
Now, in my mind, the Muslim Brotherhood is the mother of all Islamic organizations of the 20th century, including Al-Qaeda.
For years, the U.S. government had been dealing with Muslim Brotherhood front groups and leaders, though unaware of the secret roles they played in the Brotherhood infrastructure in the U.S.
The West, as we see today, instead of isolating the Muslim Brotherhood, actually engaging the Muslim Brotherhood as the organization that's moderate, and these are the Muslims we can talk to. The West is tremendously naive about the danger of these various Islamic organizations.
How do you define the good guys, you know? If the good guy definition is they will not be engaged in terrorist activities, well, yeah, okay, they're the good guys. But in terms of the democratic social order that we have here and what's mainstream, well, they may not be the good guys.
These are the words of other leaders of American Muslim organizations that have roots in the Muslim Brotherhood.
I find that there are only two things which are open to our movements: ballot or bullet, nothing in between.
Our job is to change the Constitution of America.
Ultimately, the Muslim Brotherhood wants to establish an Islamic state in America. They believe that Western civilization is corrupt, is evil, is decadent, and they want to dismantle it.
If you talk to normal people who are not involved in this stuff at all, and talk about the establishment of a caliphate as being someone's long-term goal, you lose them immediately. It's so far outside the realm of what we consider to be possible or normal that it's sort of immediately dismissed as being crazy talk. I don't think it matters much what we say about them. I think it matters tremendously what they say about themselves and to each other.
This religion, that is Islam, it shall govern the whole universe. The Islamic civilization should rule and govern and direct people in every walk of life, but not to be governed by others.
Kamal Halbawi is the only spokesperson for the Muslim Brotherhood who agreed to be interviewed for this documentary. Upon his return to Egypt in 2011, Halbawi eulogized Osama bin Laden as a martyr and one of the good people.
Anything mentioned in the Quran, they believe in it 100%. And they want to implement it. Not only to believe, but they would like to implement it. And they are trying very hard to invite others to the same orientation and the same trend.
Like Helbawi, Yusuf Qaradawi is a big proponent of dawah, a doctrine that mandates carrying out a variety of proselytizing activities, leading to the conversion of all non-Muslims to Islam. Here, Qaradawi tells an audience in Ohio about the group's goals to conquer the world, including the United States.
فتح بالدعوة هذا ما نأمله إن شاء الله. سنفتح أوروبا وسنفتح أمريكا لا بالسيف ولكن بالدعوة.
To realize its vision in America, the Muslim Brotherhood gave rise to a complex interlinked network of Islamic organizations. Groups that present a seemingly legitimate public face to camouflage their hidden U.S. agenda, with civic sounding names echoing those created in the heyday of the Civil Rights era, such as the Muslim Students Association, MSA, the Islamic Society of North America, ISNA, the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE. Collectively, these groups dominate representation of the Muslim American community, though not one of them incorporates the words Muslim Brotherhood in its name.
The Muslim Brotherhood is like the Russian doll. It's one organization inside another, inside another, inside another, and it's endless. You never have a complete sense of it unless you have the totality of the dolls. They are very, very clever if you are privy to their master plan.
In August 2004, a Virginia man and his wife were stopped on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge in Maryland for videotaping the bridge's suspension cables. Federal investigators knew Ismail el-Barassi had already been under scrutiny for his connections to the terrorist group and Muslim Brotherhood-spawned organization, Hamas.
Ultimately, that arrest led to a search warrant of Mr. el-Barassi's home, which revealed thousands of documents that absolutely blew the doors open on our understanding of the Muslim Brotherhood movement in the United States.
We had discovered to our amusement that he was actually kind of the archivist for the American branch of the Muslim Brotherhood.
The FBI found a cache of documents detailing the structure of the Muslim Brotherhood in the U.S., including this one, revealing the goals of the group in America. It was titled An Explanatory Memorandum on the General Strategic Goal for the Group in North America. It's dated May 22, 1991. The document named the organizations that could be enlisted to achieve the group's goals. 29 American Muslim groups were named either as Brotherhood organizations or Friends of the Brotherhood. The list included such prominent Muslim organizations as the Islamic Society of North America, ISNA, the Muslim Students Association, MSA, the Islamic Circle of North America, ICNA, and the Islamic Association for Palestine, IAP.
I thought of them as brotherhood groups, but I think it would have been somewhat difficult to prove. But it wasn't until the explanatory memorandum came out that one could say, okay, well, so we were right. Yeah, these groups are clearly enumerated.
The documents and the information on those documents that we reviewed was entirely consistent with our years of covert investigation.
The fascinating thing to me is that they describe in some detail their thinking. In the United States, you need organizations. Therefore, we set up organizations. Boom, 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 and there they are. And I think that sort of the understanding of American culture and American political structure demonstrated by that is rather extraordinary.
The organizations that were on that list represented a huge segment of the Islamic voice in North America at the time.
The memorandum not only named names, it candidly revealed just how the Brotherhood viewed the United States as a target for conquest.
The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means.
I'm in the middle of a meeting now.
The Ikhwan, which is what the Brotherhood uses to describe themselves, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. That's pretty clear as to how they viewed their own objective. And this is, they're talking about the United States here.
It is very important. Media in the United States is very gullible. Okay? Like they will see you have something, especially as a Muslim, if you have something to say. They'll come running and take advantage of that.
We write the article itself, all we ask the reporter, write your name and it becomes yours. We're not after a critic, just write it, put your name on it, and it becomes yours. This is the best way. When you write the article, we tell them what's the name.
الإخوان المسلمين في هذا يطبقوا استراتيجية جرامشي. جرامشي فيلسوف إيطالي لما كان في السجن فكر أن العمال الطبقة العاملة مش ممكن تأخذ السلطة السياسية إلا إذا أخذت السلطة الثقافية. يعني الثقافة متاعها انتشرت بين الناس بالإعلام والتعليم في كل مكان، وقتها تأخذ السلطة.
You have people who are being deceived by a campaign of deception, brazen lies that are presented as the truth and abetted by those in government or the media that embrace it and then ensure that it's perceived as the truth.
Other documents found in Ismail el-Barassi's archive in 2004 provide more detail on the Brotherhood's tactics. This document reads, "No doubt America is the ideal location to train the necessary resources to support the movement worldwide, with its need for brothers who are trained in different fields, administrative, media, political, and others."
We encourage Islamic centers to assign scholarship and give scholarship for 5 students every year. Imagine if we do it nationwide. 5 years from now, you will have an army of lawyers. You will have an army of politicians, and an army of journalists, an army of teachers who go to schools, universities, and educate people about history of Islam, Islam.
You see so many organizations working on so many fronts to use our very system, the systems that they deplore, our democracy, our constitution, our rule of law, our tolerance. That's what they use to exploit their message. That's what they use to protect themselves and to create a facade around them that would allow them to internally operate and seek to achieve their true, often unstated objectives.
At a hotel just off a busy highway in Philadelphia, a secret meeting is called to order in October 1993. The FBI was watching and listening. During the meetings, the group used code in an effort to confuse anyone who might be listening. The code for Hamas was Sama, Hamas spelled backwards. Hamas, a Muslim Brotherhood organization, at this time was carrying out acts of violence in Israel, including kidnappings, drive-by shootings, and stabbing attacks. It became a U.S.-designated terrorist group in 1995.
They even specifically discuss how do we keep ourselves from being defined as terrorists. They recognize when the doors are shut, they recognize that supporting Hamas is supporting terrorism. They know what the word means. And the concern was, if it is revealed what we truly support, then we will no longer be able to operate in this country the way in which we have been able to operate today.
For these men gathered in Philadelphia, the mission was just one campaign in a war.
واحنا بنحارب صدق احنا بنحارب عدونا كلام طيب عمرنا ما فكرنا نخدع عدونا حرب وخدع اخدع موت اعمل حالك ماشي موت ماشي هناك سياسة الدنيا تكمل الحرب حرب وخدع
الحرب خدع. The war is deception. Once you accept the fact that the system that you're living under at the present time is illegitimate, okay, then you're prepared to do anything illegal, underhanded, deceptive. The whole thing is illegitimate. You're in a war. So all bets are off.
The Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas advertising themselves as being peaceful organizations was nothing more than a pragmatic ruse to convince the world that they were mainstream and moderate. You need only scratch the surface to see that, in fact, they were not.
Within a year of the Philadelphia meeting, Omar Ahmad and Nihad Awad would help to rebrand the Hamas Front, IAP, as the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE.
They take terms like jihad, like terrorism, and they redefine it for themselves to justify and rationalize the positions they're taking. So someone might say, do you support terrorism? They say no, because they don't believe that acts, for example, by Hamas against Israeli civilians is terrorism.
A typical response is to avoid condemning officially designated terrorist groups, Hamas or Hezbollah by name, hiding behind the broad term terrorism. When pressed by the reporter to condemn Hamas and Hezbollah, this CARE official repeatedly refused.
I'm telling you in a very clear fashion, CARE condemns terrorist acts, whoever commits them, wherever they commit them, whenever they commit them.
This is how the language is contorted. This is how the language is manipulated. This is how the agenda is hidden. It's hidden in the language.
The goal is peace, in one word, peace.
Islam is peace. Yeah, Islam is peace. But peace is not necessarily freedom. Peace just means the absence of opposition.
To prevail everywhere and justice.
Who would ever have a problem with justice? Jihad is just to establish justice. So when you hear the word justice, you think fighting for someone's rights or trying to make sure that no one is mistreated or abused or whatever. That's not how Muslim fundamentalists define justice. Okay? Justice can only come from Allah, from God. We will never have justice until we have an Islamic state, because whoever doesn't rule by what Allah has revealed is an oppressor.
The goal is equality. The goal is respect of human rights. The goal is to live Muslims and non-Muslims together in one society.
أيها الإخوة الكرام، إن القضية الفلسطينية ليست صراعا على حدود ولا أرض فحسب، بل هي صراع حضاري، منهج شيطاني يتزعمه اليهود ومن يوالونهم، ومنهج رباني تحمله حماس والحركة الإسلامية جميعا والشعوب الإسلامية من ورائها.
These type of radical Muslims, they know their agenda is so sensitive. I mean, if anyone ever caught wind of what they're doing, you know, they'd be finished. So they have to hide it. They have to mask it. They hide it in plain sight. That's what they do. They hide it in plain sight.
Publicly, Al-Amoudi established ties with powerful members of Congress and presidential candidates.
Al-Amoudi was someone who I think embodied really the ability for these organizations to penetrate a very deep level of society and a deep level of our government.
The Defense Department provided further access for Al-Amoudi, putting him in charge of the military's Muslim chaplain program. The State Department even selected Al-Amoudi to serve as a goodwill spokesman to the Muslim world. Documents reveal that the State Department spent at least $40,000 to send Al-Amoudi on speaking tours in the Middle East from 1992 to 2001. Al-Amoudi discussed the state of Islam in America in countries such as Saudi Arabia, Syria, Jordan, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. In a 1999 visit to Amman, Jordan, On a goodwill mission, he gave a moderate speech at the U.S. Embassy, but later that afternoon, in an undercover interview, he revealed his support for violence. Back home a year later, Al-Amoudi finally merged his public persona and private allegiances at a Washington, D.C. rally just steps from the White House. This video was taken after the mainstream media had left for the day.
I have been labeled by the media in New York to be a supporter of Hamas. Anybody support this Hamas here? Hear that, Bill Clinton? We are all supporters of Hamas. Allahu Akbar. I wish they added that I'm also a supporter of Hezbollah. Anybody supports Hezbollah here? Takbir!
Verbally supporting terror groups while shocking is not illegal. On the other hand, in January of 2001, Al-Amoudi traveled with several other members of the American Muslim Brotherhood to Beirut to meet with leaders of Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, and Al-Qaeda. The goal of the meeting was to unite the terror groups to wage jihad against Israel and the U.S. to secure Muslim control of Jerusalem. Beyond all of his other associations, Al-Amoudi was also close with the country of Libya, at the time designated a state sponsor of terrorism.
He was a person we were monitoring in the same way that we monitor other people who were believed to be agents of foreign powers.
In March 2003, Libyan President Muammar al-Gaddafi felt he was publicly insulted by Saudi Crown Prince Abdullah and recruited Al-Amoudi to work on an assassination plot against the Crown Prince. During a stopover in London in September 2003, British custom officials found $340,000 in cash in a briefcase with Al-Amoudi. U.S. officials later charged him with prohibited transactions with Libya, lying on immigration forms, and supporting terrorism. This Treasury document states Al-Amoudi had been an Al-Qaeda fundraiser for years, while he was still meeting with countries on behalf of the U.S. He received a sentence of 23 years for his crimes. He declined to be interviewed for this program. However, in a written response, he made this startling admission from prison. I am, I hope, still a member of the Muslim Brotherhood organization in the USA. Abdurrahman Al-Amoudi's political efforts in America would become eclipsed by those of another Muslim Brotherhood front group. Immediately after the events of September 11, 2001, a coalition that included the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, and other Muslim Brotherhood front groups condemned the attacks. On September 16th, CARE took out a full-page ad in the Washington Post denouncing the attacks. Within hours, CARE's Nihad Awad was prominently positioned next to President Bush.
The face of terror is not the true faith of Islam. That's not what Islam is all about. Islam is peace.
How did CARE get this close to power? Since its inception in 1994, CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, established more than 30 chapters across the country. And since 9/11, CARE has achieved nationwide acceptance, from the inauguration of CARE Days in Houston and Tampa, to the support of mayors, governors, congressmen, and senators. After 9/11, CARE was also embraced by some within the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. Joint sessions with CARE were held routinely throughout the country.
I also am on the mailing list for my BlackBerry for CARE. Now, Mr. Hoover, I don't know what he does all day, but I know I get BlackBerries. Must be 10 emails a day from CARE. And if I am not aware of what's going on in CARE, I will be at a loss.
My record is clear. CARE is not a terrorist-supporting organization. That is my experience. That is my interaction. And if you want to promote that, you're on your own.
While ingratiating itself with law enforcement, CARE simultaneously discouraged other Muslims from cooperating with authorities. In late 2008, in the course of the largest terrorism financing trial in U.S. history, CARE was officially described as a front group for Hamas by an FBI agent on the witness stand. Prosecutors named CARE as an unindicted co-conspirator in the trial. With mounting scrutiny, the FBI officially cut its ties to CARE, explaining its decision in letters to inquiring congressmen. Until we can resolve whether there continues to be a connection between CARE or its executives and Hamas, the FBI does not view CARE as an appropriate liaison partner. CARE launched an all-out verbal assault on its former partner as a form of damage control, propagating incendiary conspiracy theories.
But actually the FBI, over the last 8 years, have been engaging in actually paying informants as instigators.
The FBI, by using informants acting as agent provocateurs, has recruited more so-called extremist Muslims than Al-Qaeda themselves.
This is a conscious strategy. It's to scream injustice, scream particular things so that people will never dare to ever question certain things. Being a bully helps. No one wants to deal with the bullies, so everyone says, let's just give them what they want. Let's, in a way, appease them so that they're not going to, keep banging, and they're just, let's just get them off our back.
The Muslim Brotherhood affiliated groups have been masterful in getting government officials to adopt their censorship campaign, such as refusing to even utter the term radical Islam.
In the case of all 3 attempts in the last year, the terrorist attempts, one of which was successful, those individuals have had ties to radical Islam. Do you feel that these individuals might have been incited to take the actions that they did because of radical Islam?
Because of?
Radical Islam.
There are a variety of reasons why I think people have taken these actions. It's hard. One, I think you have to look at each individual case. I mean, we're in the process now of talking to Mr. Shahzad to try to understand what it is that drove him to take the action.
But radical Islam could have been one of the reasons?
There are a variety of reasons why people...
But was radical Islam one of them?
There are a variety of reasons why people do these things. Some of them are potentially religious.
Okay, but all I'm asking is if you think among those variety of reasons, radical Islam might have been one of the reasons that the individuals took the steps that they did.
We see, say, radical Islam. I mean, I think those people who espouse a version of Islam that is not...
Are you uncomfortable attributing any of their actions to radical Islam? It sounds like...
No, I don't want to say anything negative about a religion that is...
No, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about radical Islam. I'm not talking about the general religion.
Right, and I'm saying that a person like Anwar al-Awlaki, for instance, who has a version of Islam that is not consistent with the teachings of it, and who espouses a radical version.
Could radical Islam have motivated these individuals to take the steps that they did?
I certainly think that it's possible that people who espouse a radical version of Islam have had an ability to have an impact on people like Mr. Shahzad.
Okay, and could it have been the case in one of these 3 instances?
Could that have been the case?
Yeah, could one of these 3 individuals have been incited by radical Islam? Apparently you feel that they could have been.
Well, I think potentially incited by people who have a view of Islam that is inconsistent.
It's hard to get an answer yes or no, but let me go on to my next question.
Okay, you can see the political correctness there at the end. Okay, the documents that they were talking about. This is the whole basis of this thing. They had that raid in Virginia in 2004. They find a treasure trove of documents. I have 2 of the documents up here, and we have some more in the back on that one table that I brought in, some more of the documents. The explanatory memorandum. This is the problem. This is the document that was used as evidence in that trial, in the Holy Land Foundation trial. Well, they're executing their plan. So the trial was in 2008. 2008, Obama gets elected. He put the second part of the trial on hold. The first part of the trial sent away 108 people for funneling $11 million to Hamas. There was a list of unindicted co-conspirators. That means the government's got the goods on these people. There was supposed to be a second part to the trial, and they should probably be all in prison now. There's 254 of them, as well as these organizations are actually unindicted, listed as unindicted co-conspirators. The second part of that trial has not been allowed to happen. There are 800 cases of evidence sitting in the Justice Department that Holder will not release. Louis Gohmert, Michelle Bachmann, many organizations have been clamoring for these things to come out and get them out. And that's the basis of what's going on here. So Obama gets involved, and one of the first things they start working on, that actually became official in 2012, were something called the Purge. Hundreds of FBI files, training manuals, and presentations were removed in a matter of 6 weeks. Years of training and for our intelligence agencies and our military services, everything pertaining to Islam, Islamism, jihad, anything like that was all stricken. And the trainers were fired. Trainers that had been there for years. Okay, so they were all let go. So we've had Bev and I met a couple last year in DC. One of them has one of those websites I was talking about on my card. His name is John Guandolo. I don't have a picture of him this evening, but he's one of the main trainers for the FBI that's fired, and he's working with us to tell people about this. Okay, one guy said in the movie about controlling the narrative. The Fort Hood shooting, okay? They still, to this day, will not call it terrorism. They're calling it workplace violence. That's our new terminology now. Major Nadal Hassan had business cards that had the initials SOA on it, Soldier of Allah, and he yells Allahu Akbar as he shoots up 31 people. He was outraged by our refusal to accept the law of the land, or the law of Allah, Sharia, to be the supreme law of the land. He had actually given a PowerPoint to his supervisors a couple of years prior to this, saying that Muslims won't do this, will commit jihad, okay? And then they just ignored him. The administration continues to classify this as workplace violence. After the shootings, then Army General George Casey Jr. said that as bad as the deaths of the 13 soldiers were, it would be an even greater tragedy if our diversity becomes a casualty. I remember watching that. It was on ABC with Stephanopoulos when he said that. I almost fell out of my chair. Part of the plan, this is how they're going to do it. Infiltration in our government. We now have Congressman Keith Ellison from Minnesota, who swore in on a Koran. We have Congressman Andre Carson from Indiana. And we have CIA Director Brennan.
Barack Obama's nominee for the post of CIA Director, John Brennan, has a long history of associations with radical Islamists, notably the Muslim Brotherhood. In February of 2010, Brennan spoke at an Islamic Society of North America sponsored event, coddling Muslims, as Barack Obama has often done.
I came to see Islam, not how it is often misrepresented, but for what it is. How it is practiced every day by well over 1 billion Muslims worldwide. A faith of peace and tolerance and great diversity.
Islamic Society of North America, or ISNA, was an unindicted co-conspirator in the 2008 Holy Land Foundation trial, found to be funneling millions of dollars to the Muslim Brotherhood terrorist group Hamas. Brennan also has deep ties to another Muslim Brotherhood front group, Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, also an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation case. CARE has had literally hundreds of secret meetings with the Obama administration, no doubt at Brennan's bequest. In October of 2011, the group Muslim Advocates wrote a letter signed by 57 Muslim organizations, whose main signatories were CARE and ISNA, demanding the Obama administration remove quote-unquote bigoted language found in FBI training materials, terms like jihad and Islamist, the rationale being that these terms offended Muslims.
It is important to note that out of concern for the FBI's outreach program and the State Department and the White House for reaching out and bringing in people who courts have said have supported terrorism, and these people are being brought in the military, we've said brought inside the wire, in this case brought inside the State Department, brought inside the White House on a regular basis, brought inside the Justice Department. They've gotten the FBI to actually go through and cull material that includes words like jihad, words like Islamist. And in fact, and I really do wish, Mr. Speaker, that our director of the FBI would be as concerned about this law as he is about laws that don't exist, but his concern about offending people who have been supporting terrorism that has been killing innocent people around the world.
Brennan responded to the letter personally and not only purged FBI training materials, but implemented a mandatory retraining program for FBI agents, U.S. Army officers, and all federal, state, and local law enforcement who had been subjected to quote-unquote bias training. Those who refused to toe the politically correct line, like war hero and Army trainer Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Dooley, were summarily blacklisted, instead of purging FBI training materials of anything that offends the Muslim Brotherhood.
Okay, 6 key advisors in the Obama administration. You might have seen this email go around. On the bottom there you see investigativeproject.org. That's again the guy who made the video, Steve Emerson. Next week I'm going to talk to Carol's group over there on Caves Road at Patterson, and I'm going to delve in a little bit more deeper on these people. Mohammed Al-Biari, the second individual there, he's now a senior fellow at the Department of Homeland Security. Mohammed Majid is in charge of the Islamic Society in North America, ISNA, that we just saw. I don't have this slide, but something that's been happening around town, interfaith dialogues. ISNA is intrinsically involved in this interfaith dialogues that happen around the country.
Could I talk about that for just a second?
Wait till we get to the interfaith slide.
Oh, okay.
Let me back up for a second. According to Brigitte, back in Washington, we were there last summer, she said there are 43 Muslim Brotherhood in the administration, 6 in key advisory roles. So the Department of Homeland Security, the fox is guarding the hen house. They're teaching DHS and law enforcement to not use moderate Muslims, ones who are against Sharia law, as the trainers. This book has been given out by the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulov's group. We had a woman that's pretty, you may know some of her, I'm not going to say her name. She lives down in Stowe, her and her husband. Back in 2010, when these guidelines were being changed, coincidentally at the same time, her husband was concerned and following this stuff and concerned about Sharia law, orders a whole slew of these books from the ACLJ, sends them to every sheriff in the state of Ohio. Okay. He had gotten a scuffle with a street worker or something, somebody snowplowing or something, got in an argument, next thing you know, the cops come. Nothing happens, okay. But they took down his information. Lo and behold, a sheriff in Lima, Ohio, got his name off of somehow in the computer system because his name got entered or whatever. He became a person of interest in DHS because his name popped up and they put 2 and 2 together with him passing out this information to the sheriffs. Okay, so they actually put him as a person of interest, as anti-government. This is about the same time when the Christians were getting all, you know, when they're talking about returning vets and let's put the Christians, or look at the Christians as well. To the point where they visited him, the mom, or the wife, they got really involved and got in the mayor's face, a Stowe. The bottom line is they got an apology and a $22,000 settlement from the city of Stowe with no gag order. She came to see me at the first meeting we had last April and asked me to, you know, please tell people around town that this happened to them. She showed me the documents. I took them to Act for America, showed them, passed this information to other chapter leaders, and what I found out, this stuff was happening elsewhere around the country as well. So what happens is you have a sheriff that got confused. He hears the buzzword is anti-Sharia, puts it and looks at the list, and that makes him a person of interest. Okay, CARE and the IRS. After years of improper filing, where they didn't do anything right on their forms, just prior to the 2012 elections, they got instant approval so they could start fundraising. And guess who approved her, or approved them? Lois Lerner. One of the things they talked about in the organizations, politicians, get involved in schools, now we have Al Jazeera English. Al Jazeera English is funded by the government of Qatar. Okay, government of Qatar is the financial backing of the Muslim Brotherhood. So they buy it from $500 million from current TV, from Al Gore, and all of a sudden they have a presence on the airwaves. Mosques. We had 800 mosques in the country in the year 2000. We are up over 2,200 now. Ohio is somewhere between 50 to 99 mosques. And I was contacted by another woman in our chapter. The Solon's putting one in, or it's they're working on it right now, currently. Grade schools. You might have seen this. Anybody who follows Glenn Beck talked about this last year when Texas was doing C-Scope for their kids, their version of Common Core, that they actually, the moms were calling in and complaining about this in their lesson plan, kids dressing up in burqas. This stuff is happening everywhere in the country. They put a stop to it, but it keeps coming back. At least put a stop to that particular point in time. Over in Olmsted Falls, one of the first things we did as a chapter, we were contacted by a woman from Olmsted Falls who works on the alumni board there. And one of the teachers on their own brought in a video called 30 Days as a Muslim. And this is not part of the curriculum, they just brought it in on their own. So we watched the video. Mom had big problems with this. And the movie was done by
Spurlock.
Yeah, Morgan Spurlock, Michael Moore's buddy, the guy who did the Super Size Me McDonald's thing. Okay, so he's a liberal now on CNN. Okay, no big deal there. That's her viewpoint. However, there was a big problem with the film. Not only does it pick Muslims as the most happiest people, and Jews and Christians as sad individuals, and it's totally slanted against Christianity. Okay, it's a Christian man who leaves his wife in West Virginia, drives up to Detroit, Dearborn. We actually have a book all about it that you can look at after the meeting. And he leaves his wife and little 30-year-old wife and 1-year-old daughter, leaves West Virginia, drives up to Dearborn, Michigan, decides to spend a month with a Muslim family. Okay, fine. He learns how to dress as a Muslim, goes out and gets all the garb, grows the beard, wakes up at 5 a.m., does all the prayers. He can't stay at home while the husband's at work. All that's fine. It's pure propaganda. At the end of the film, he's doubting his Christianity. He's ready to convert Muslim, and he goes away. Islam's not that bad. It's a pure propaganda film. That's not the worst part of it. The worst part is that one of the experts in the film that's advising him is the guy from the Michigan chapter of CARE. So when I told the mom this, I said, well, you know, they have problems with it, and they brought in clergy, should they do it? You know, we believe in the same God and all that. You can fight about religion all day long. But our 7th graders should not be listening to any instruction from an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terrorism financing trial. So, you would think so. We get involved and go to the school board meeting. We're supporting her, trying to explain this. Mike Goldstein does an excellent 15-minute presentation to them, explaining to them about the Holy Land Foundation trial and who, besides the video and everything, but who CARE is, and their unindicted co-conspirators, and Hamas, and the whole shop. I sit in the back room, my first experience in any of this, first school board meeting I've ever been to. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching the body language. And we got the administrators sitting, the superintendent sitting up there, and the school board members, and not one of them are really paying it that much attention. A couple of them are on their phones, texting or looking up stuff. I don't know what they were doing. But they should have been listening to him. And the mere fact, like I told the mom, I said, we may not get this stopped, but we should at least get it delayed until they look into this. We should create some doubt. The school board member should say, well, after this evidence, we should at least look into this. That's all that should happen. They didn't even do that. One guy said that, you know, I have my doubts. That's what they all should have said after we explained what we did. They had made their mind up, nah, it's going to stay, it's going to stay. Well, of course, she's furious. So Bev and Mike know the people at Thomas More Law Center up in Michigan, got together with them, showed them everything, the evidence, and she decided to take the case to them. They got involved. They do these types of things at Thomas More Law Center in Ann Arbor, and they send a threatening letter to go to court to the school system. Lo and behold, they stopped showing the video. So, but it shouldn't even come to that, and it shouldn't even come to that. That she was the only mom that would stand up. That's the sad thing too. The other moms wouldn't back her. She should have a group of moms saying, "What are you doing? It's not even part of the curriculum, and you're bringing this in." So that's what happened in Olmsted Falls. Brevard County, Florida.
And welcome back to Hannity. World history textbook in the Florida public school system is raising serious concerns over its alleged Islamic bias. Now, the textbook has been used in 9th grade advanced placement classes in Brevard County schools for the past 3 years. It is now under review by the school board. Let's take a look inside this book. Now, first, as you can see on the screen, the book has a major chapter on Islam titled Muslim Civilizations. By the way, keep in mind, it has 0 chapters on Christianity or Judaism. The chapter goes on to teach about the Prophet Muhammad and how he became God's messenger, even describes jihad as a, quote, holy war to defend Islam. Here now with the book in hand and more details on the controversy, Fox News Radio's Todd Starnes.
This is it, Sean. 36 pages in this textbook dedicated to Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. Not one chapter about Christianity, not one positive mention about Jesus. They say that some people believe he may be the Savior, but they declare definitively that Muhammad is God's messenger. Public school.
Let's talk about, and you said they're defining jihad, interpreting as a holy war to defend Islam against the victims.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I mean, through the entire chapter, Sean, I mean, Islam is defended. They talk about how wonderful Islam is to women. I mean, you'd think that they were having Victoria's Secret stores over there. I mean, by reading this.
Women who can't drive or go to school.
That's right. Or the women who are stoned, who've been brutally assaulted and murdered. None of that is mentioned here in this book.
Or the women under Sharia that need 4 male eyewitnesses to prove rape.
Look, it goes so far as to even redefine history, reconstruct history. They talk about the Crusades. Whenever the Christians do something, they call it a massacre. But whenever the Muslims do something, they call it an occupation.
Yeah, well, big difference. Why, if it's a world history book, and they're going to deal with the sensitive topic of religions, why not comparative religions?
It's a great question, and unfortunately, the publisher of this book is not giving us the answer to that question. I called Pearson publishers. They wouldn't talk to us. They gave us a prepared statement. They're defending this. They say it's fair and balanced. But look, school board members are telling me in Brevard County that it's not fair and balanced. They've had a chance to read this, and they have big problems with it. But this is bigger than just Brevard County. Sean, when I did my original story, we started getting emails from all over the country, parents saying they had similar issues, and we understand that a study's been done by the Citizens for National Security, and they tell me that at least 80 textbooks that are in use right now are filled with Muslim bias. This is happening all across the country.
Is it just bias, or is it also a whitewashed, politically correct version? For example, the definition of jihad is wrong.
Exactly. I mean, it's not only whitewashing history, it's also distorting what jihad and what other definitions like that really are. And the reason why is this. There is an organization called the Institute on Religious and Civic Values. They have an advisor. They were an academic advisor to this book. Now, you might say that seems like a fairly normal organization. Innocuous. They changed their name. They used to be known as the Council on Islamic Education.
Pretty amazing. Where's the ACLU? Where are liberals that don't want any religion or the mention of Jesus or prayer in schools?
Cue the crickets. Look, you put baby Jesus in the school play, the ACLU is filing a lawsuit. You have teachers saying grace as they did it to one school in the Florida Panhandle. They're threatened with jail. But they haven't issued one statement about 36 pages of Islamic doctrine. Bible verses from the Quran in here. No Bible verses, but the Quran is in this public school textbook.
Do you think this outcry that started, do you think it'll end in this being removed?
That could be. Just a few moments ago, a school board member called me from Brevard County. She's introducing this to the entire board. She has grave concerns about what she read in here. And we could see this book revised, rewritten, or possibly removed from the school system.
All right, Todd, great investigative work as usual. Todd Starnes, Fox News Radio. And when we come back, we'll play your choice for tonight's video of the day. Straight ahead.
Okay, well, the book was not removed. By the way, the group involved exposing this was the Act for America chapter in Brevard County. They, what they did allow to see happen was some sort of a supplement added to it, but they didn't change anything. Okay. So then it spread down in Florida. It also went to Volusia County, Florida, which is, I don't know exactly where down the road, a little white piece, but they, it came about there where everybody got involved. So then they scheduled this big school board meeting. Okay, and there's videos on our Act for America website showing this, where the people are all, you know, a room about 3 times the size, filled, want to have a school board meeting. The Justice Department stepped in and had the meeting canceled. When does the Justice Department get involved in a local school board meeting? Okay? All right. And then another clip shows CARE there, and some Muslims, and the students, and the parents. The students are standing by the Muslims. The students in the school. So they're totally clueless, but they're right away going over and supporting them, thinking, oh, this is fine, we should have this book. Common Core. Now, I'm not get into a lot about Common Core, but at some point we will. We'll be back next year with an education, a program all about education. But this building here is going in near the department. This is being built near the Department of Education. When Arnie Duncan talks about nationwide or national partners involved in Common Core, he mentions Bill Gates, the Gates Foundation. This is one of the organizations that he does not tell you about, the Qatar Foundation International, QFI.org. You can look them up. Qatar, again, government Qatar, financial backing of the Muslim Brotherhood. When you go on their website, you'll see some disturbing videos. Okay, one of the little videos is called, the program has students from Chicago on the computer, Skyping with students from Cairo or from Riyadh and Brazil, and it's all the green movement, making them global citizens. And of course, there's no mention of Christianity, but the name of the program is Y Allah, the letter Y and then Allah. And I looked it up. It's pronounced technically, according to Wikipedia, Yalla, meaning let's go. But still, I also took advertising in college. It's called subliminal advertising. You have Y and then Allah. So it's self-explanatory. You dig further, and you'll see that the Clinton Global Initiative is heavily involved. So you got a lot of things they're doing. No Christianity, all Islam. They're learning how to pray. They're on mats, and then you know, the global student, the green movement. Our universities, 75,000 student visas, foreign visas went out last year. 15,000 of those students never went to school. They couldn't even account for them. NOC-MES means the Northeast Ohio Consortium of Middle Eastern Studies. we have the Middle Eastern Studies departments at Case Western, Baldwin Wallace, John Carroll, Kent, Oberlin, and Cleveland State. And you can see this is from their website right here. One of their community partners is CARE. So, John Carroll partnering with an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terrorism financing trial. This fellow here, Doug Saunders, was in town last year at the Beechwood Library, last April. They have these programs from time to time. And he was selling a book that I looked it up as on Amazon, 12 bucks. So he's not really making a whole heck of a lot of money. It's called The Myth of the Muslim Tide. We had about 30 of us from our chapter there. He was talking to the crowd and saying there's really nothing that can be concerned about with Muslim immigration and the Muslim movement. The Italians came, the Irish came, and you know, they assimilated and no problem there. And this would be the same thing. Mike Goldstein then asked him, as people were asking questions about the explanatory memorandum. He made a comment that, oh, it's a forged document. And then they shut Mike down and made him sit down and moved on to other questions. That was in the beginning of the talk. After he was talking, he'd answer questions and he'd go back and talk. And he was sitting next to Professor Pete Moore from Case Western Reserve University. He's the guy that brought him in. So we go around the room. There's a lot of softball questions asked, a lot of yada, yada, yada. No really drilling down to anything. And it got to me towards the end, and I asked him 2 questions. I said, well, listen, I said, you mentioned that this is a forged document. And he says, well, I don't know nothing about that. I go, what do you mean you don't know nothing about that? You don't know that it's a forged document, or you don't know anything about the document? And he couldn't answer me. So that was one. Then I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, where's the Muslim leadership in the country? I said, it'd be really simple just to come out and say we support the Constitution, we don't want any part of Sharia. That would make a moot point. We'd all be good with that and, you know, live your life, worship Allah, that's the end of it. Well, he said, well, we don't want Sharia. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I said, I think we do, or I think you do. I said, there are states that are passing laws called American laws for American courts, where it clearly says no foreign law can be used in the courts, period. Any foreign law, including Sharia. And what's happening is, at that time there was only 4 states, now we're up to 8. But at the time, we're seeing protests online at these different states where they're trying to pass it by the Muslim Students Association. They're protesting the passage of this law. And I said to him, well, to me that means if they're protesting against the passage of this law, they're saying they want Sharia law. Well, then he just argued with me, nah, they're not doing that, and this and that. And I said, well, I'll show you videos, but one thing led to another, it never got anywhere. But he got my point. Libraries. Islamic books are going into over 800 libraries around the country on our tax dollars. Pretty sure Cleveland Heights, Beechwood, Lakewood has these. They're your tax dollars. This is all part of the plan. It's in the memorandum, part of the society. Prisons. Pastor Ernie and I were talking about this the other night. The Muslim chaplains are converting many prisoners. The African American community. They're in prison, they have a chip on their shoulder. They're easy marks. And the problem there is that the chaplains are certified by ISNA. So they're in that. The military. Muslim Brotherhood instructors were teaching last summer at the U.S. Naval Academy. They're teaching at the recruiting station at Lackland Air Force Base. Now I know for a fact, I have a good friend that has his son just graduated Naval Academy last May. So I asked him, I said, tell me what you learn about Islam. He said, well actually 2 different things. He said, the first 2 years I was here, we heard one thing. He said, then the next 2 years the guy comes in and said, don't pay attention to that. We learned something totally different. Falls in with the purge. There's a picture of our recruits, Air Force recruits at Lackland Air Force Base. This is mandatory training. SEAL Team 6. They went down, these are the guys that took out bin Laden, they went down in August 2011. In a mission extortion 1-7. I'm going to get into this more next week. Linda, do you have some?
I'm just going to wrap it up.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm going to get into this more next week, but they want to come to town. The parents of one of the Navy SEALs, Aaron Vaughn, wants to come to town. I'll talk about this more next week. Syria, I'm going to fly through this now, but I just want to give you a taste for it. In Syria, our enemies are fighting our enemies. Assad, Iran, Hezbollah on one side, and the Syrian rebels, Al-Qaeda, and the Muslim Brotherhood are part of that on the other. Our position is not to get dragged into it. This is what's happening over in the Middle East. You will not see this on the mainstream news, but the Christians are paying a heavy price. Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood was installed in power, backed by us, and even the Muslims people, and the Christians, and the secular Arabs, and everybody said, we don't want no part of the Muslim Brotherhood. Benghazi, we cannot let this stop. Benghazi, we are all about Benghazi. Frank Wolf is working with us. He's on HR 36. The Senate's supposed to come up with a resolution as well to get the select committee. There's 187 co-sponsors now on that, okay, for this select committee. And the guy holding it up is a Republican, John Boehner. That is the truth. There's our friend. After the Benghazi, President Obama went out and said the future must not belong to Islam, those who slander the prophet of Islam. So this was weeks, this was at the UN, this is weeks after Benghazi. And it had nothing to do with that video, folks. A couple hundred people saw that video on YouTube. The reason why we know it had nothing to do, they're trying to fit a narrative. The UN, like I told you before, is the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, has been after the whole world about the defamation of characters or defamation of religion to get us to follow that. Okay, it's a UN, something that they work through the UN. The OIC is the biggest voting bloc in the UN. The United States has always said, no, we're not worried about that, we have the First Amendment. That changed. When Hillary became State Department, she started working with them, and it's now something called UN 1618. And OIC's goal was to have this implemented through this UN resolution in law in our country, the defamation of religion. Naturally, it's only about Islam. And they made the Cairo Declaration in 1990. The Islamic world position on human rights was made clear in 1990 when representatives of Muslim nations met in Cairo as the Organization of Islamic Cooperation voiced their opposition to the UN Declaration of Human Rights. Instead, they said they wanted just Islamic Sharia. So we have the OIC, we have political correctness, we have Al-Qaeda, and we have the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, this map only shows 7 states. We have 8 states now, and Alabama will happen in the fall. We are currently working this on in Ohio. We're supposed to have a bill soon, according to our state rep, Matt Lynch, called American Laws for American Courts. And you're going to say something about it when I'm done here, Matt? Okay. Interfaith outreach. This is the key. This is how ALAC gets stopped. It got stopped in Florida and it's got stopped in Texas. Imams are using ignorant pastors and rabbis who don't know anything about the Holy Land Foundation trial, don't know anything about this plan for our country, and they're saying we're peaceful Muslims, we just want to live in peace and we'll build bridges. And it's the group behind all the interfaith is ISNA. This just came out on Fox. This has been brought up to bear by the Christian Action Network as well. Clarion Project announced this in conjunction with an Act for America chapter. Jamaat al-Fuqra has 25 camps, terrorist camps in the country. Now Christian Action Network says we have 35, okay? We asked Claire Lopez last summer when Bev and I had dinner with her in June in Washington, and she said it's more like 80. So what can you do? Join Act for America. Sign up for their emails. Push your legislators when it's time. Sign up on my emails, and we'll push the legislators when it's time to get ALAC involved. Now, ALAC is not a silver bullet, but it's a good start. There's several state laws we can get passed, and then we'll push the federal legislators as well. But the opinion of the leadership at ACT is we have to do things at a state level. That's just the nature of the beast that we face these days. So I've had conference calls with Michelle Bachmann, and they said, please, it's desperate. Name names, put pressure on the politicians, And that's what we have to do. So sign up for if you sign up for Act for America's emails on their website, you're going to get a daily email on all of these topics. And I encourage you, please at least do that and share it with people so this subject rises to the level of every other issue that we're concerned with. And then for my personal emailing list, if you want to email me at actcleveland@gmail.com, put you on my mailing list and you'll find out more as we progress. Learn and share the information, pass it along to others. I can't stress enough about that conference call we had with Michelle Bachmann. She said, we are at desperate times, desperate measures. Name names, please. She needs your help, so that's good.
And one other thing is suggesting to help. How many of you are Catholic? Okay. John Carroll University has Muslim imams, professors, whatever you want to call it, in the Catholic University teaching Islam to Catholic students. In addition to that, those professors go out and they have a regular form, if you will, that they do. And I know one of the Muslim professors that does this, because I confronted him a couple of times. He came into our Methodist church and actually tried to push his nonsense. And so, if you're an alum of John Carroll University or any of the universities locally, many of them have Muslim professors in the universities pushing this, and they make it sound so good to the students. You need to get a hold of them, and if you're donating money to them, make it very, very clear that this is not acceptable behavior. So, I mean, they are in our universities pushing this stuff, so.
Three really important announcements. First of all, those of you who would be interested in what the actual documents are for the Muslim Brotherhood that were found in Switzerland and found in Virginia, and some of the supporting activity documents that emanated from the original documents, I've created a whole notebook of them. I'll just put it out up here, and if anyone wants to see that, you're welcome. The next thing I wanted to mention is putting the evidence together to take down that video at Olmsted Falls Schools was weeks of work, and I put my work together in a notebook where you can see what the students were actually being taught. I took shots on my cell phone camera and created material for the Thomas More Law Center so they could really move forward. If you were to the WISE or some recommendations, if you ever want to go national and get pro bono work done for a party like this mom, you go in as totally prepared as you can. We went in on a Saturday. My family lives in Ann Arbor, so we stayed with my family. We had an appointment on Saturday. By the time we walked out, we had a commitment that they were going to take the case because we put together all of our evidence and took it there. So if you're ever on a team that's going to make things happen, and if you want help, you're welcome to contact me on how I did this, but this was huge, putting this evidence together. The other thing I wanted to mention is we have for sale for $5 a copy, because that's what it cost us to copy them, a summary of this book by Citizen Warrior. This will give you absolutely all the information and talking points that Dan so beautifully mentioned today. So I have about 20 here, and I got another 50 in the car. So anybody wants this for $5, you're welcome. The last thing I want to mention to you is that on April 23rd at the Maltz Museum, which is on Richmond Road between South Woodland and Chagrin, the president of ISNA, Imam Majid, and Rabbi Nosenchuk of Fairmount Temple, which is a temple, a Jewish temple in Beechwood, are going to put on one of their interfaith activities. We are not sure exactly how we're going to, what the process is we're going to do to counter this, but we may be calling on all hands to show up or to do something. So if you could just keep that date, April 23rd in mind, and Beechwood in mind.
This guy right here.
Yeah, that's why I wanted you to point him out.
Bev, we're going to have to...
Good. Thank you for giving me this chance.
This guy right there.
wanted to tell you, I know that we were limited for time. Dan is going to be, on April 5th, we're going to have a prophecy conference and in 2 places, and I'll let you know more about it, but he's going to have much more time to be, it'll go on for over 5 hours, so you can get into a lot more of this than what you've seen today. Peg Hunt here is our secretary, and folks, in order to stop this, we have to have the right kind of people in office, and that's going to take work. I mean, it's really going to take work. We're way behind on this, so listen to what Peg has to say.
So what I have here is these sign-up sheets. So I'm going to pass them around to everybody. Just put in your name, your phone number, and your township and precinct, that you can do some work on May 6th, which is the primary. We need to have, if we're going to do anything to change this country, we need to elect Matt and Skip and Linda and people like them across the country. So this is where the rubber really hits the road. We have to have people at every precinct handing out cards about Linda and how to fill in a write-in candidate name, and Matt and Skip. So many people come to the polls and they really don't know who they're going to vote for or what they're going to do. But if you hand them information about it, they're much more likely to vote for the people that are the best ones. So I'm handing out this to everybody. So just please, and here's a genuine Linda O'Brien pen.
Hey, Peg, in addition to that, I mean, we got a lot of time between now and the election, or not much time. We need signs out in people's yards. And we need help doing it.
And we've got
Write down signs next to your name.
Yeah, so you can do a sign, you can be at the precinct, here you can fill this one out.
And Alice show you how to go out and knock on doors.
Yeah, that's right. Alice is really great at knocking on doors. She's the most gutsy little ball of dynamite you've ever seen. And the other thing is that we're going to be sending out a mailing, again, to get the names out in front of people before the primaries. We're going to be sending out a mailing to people. It's going to cost us like $2,000. So anybody that can donate to help us cover that cost, please do so. You know, we'll take any amount of money, but we really need to get this information out. So just pass that around, everybody sign it, fill it out. I've got some more here, but I don't have any cards here. Here's your guys, put your name on there, and the precinct, the township, and the name, phone number, and precinct and township, so that we can contact you and we can set up teams. We need to have teams in every single precinct.
Folks, Linda is going to tell you how to write in. Now listen, they are running, as you folks know, Steve Lockerett, from the Main Street Partnership, which are virtually an extremely liberal organization being funded by George Soros and liberal groups. They're running Steve's daughter. They want to buy this election. Now, we can win this election. Believe me, we can do it by putting, our feet to work. Writing in is not a hard thing to do. We write every day. And Linda, go ahead and explain to what you do.
Let me just take a second and tell you, if you're not current on Steve Lockerett, his voting record in 2012, the last year he was in office, was only a few digits higher on the conservative side than Dennis Kucinich. So you've got that comparison in your mind? Okay. He's putting in his daughter unopposed until I decided I would go out there on the limb as a write-in candidate. Now, it's not Linda O'Brien that's out there, folks. It's you. I'm just the representative. I'm the person standing in the gap. But it's really for the American citizens here, the American patriots and the conservatives that want to keep District 76 conservative. So to be a write-in candidate, there are these cards in the front. Please take 10 of them at least and share them. If each of you get 10 more people to vote, we'll have 500 votes from this room. But it says here very clearly that you have to fill in the oval, first of all, and then there will be no prompting in Geauga County. because it's up to you to know who you want to write in, and then you write in Linda O'Brien. Now, if you spell O'Brien with an apostrophe or without, it doesn't matter. If you spell it O-B-R-I-E-N versus O-B-R-I-A-N, it doesn't matter. They'll know as long as it's legible that it's Linda O'Brien. But it takes writing it in. And we're gonna need a miracle, an absolute miracle. Back on the table are brand new pennies. When you pick it up, you'll think it's a toy. It's not the penny that you and I grew up with, that's for sure. It doesn't even feel like real money. But I have it there. I want you to take one to remind you. Keep it in your pocket. It's going to take a miracle. You know how miracles happen today? Through people. Through each one of us. Doing our part to make this happen. And when I'm there, I promise you this. My vote is not for sale. I am not going to be bought by Steve LaTourette or any other special interest groups. I'm there to represent you for your sake, for your children's sake, and your grandchildren's sake, because I'm doing it the same thing for my family. In my life, it has been God, country, and family for years. When I went to work for Peter Lewis, I turned him down 3 times. And finally, he agreed that progressive could be number 4 of my priorities. Obviously, that's not the way it works in progressive, but it sounded good as a starting point. So, please join me, support me, because we need to keep that seat conservative. Matt's held it well for these last 2 years, and let's keep it that way. In the back also, I hope each of you will take one of these. There's 5,000 of these that I've printed. This is a bookmarker that I have made from an actual photo I took of a live eagle, and because so many people asked me about it, I have the photo of what the eagle looked like before he posed, so you can see him. But on there is the scripture from 2 Chronicles that says, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin, and will heal their land." If I'm in office or not, I want 5,000 more District 76 people to have this in their home and in their lives. And I want us all praying for America. May God bless our great country. Thank you.
Hosea 4:6 in God's Word, the Bible says that my people perish for lack of knowledge. And that's why we're here tonight. You're learning. Unfortunately, our side, for a long time, a lot of us have been, a lot of what is supposed to be conservative Christians, we have been asleep. And it's a lot later than you think, believe me. We don't have any time. There is no more time to sit around asleep. We have to act and act now. And if we don't, we're going to pay a horrible price. That's reality. We have some good people here running. And I know that you folks out there, everyone, you don't have to kill yourself, but if everyone does a little bit, goes out and talks to people, we've been doing it. Believe me, I've been doing this for years. We can do this. And I can tell you this, how many of you would like to send a real strong message to the communists in this country? Because, you see, right? And if we can get Linda O'Brien elected, if we can put her, beat their money, that'll put a dagger right in the heart of communism. How many of you know what just happened in Florida, where a state representative, just like the same office Linda's running for, unknown, he ran against big money, outspent by four times, and yet they won. Do you know why? Because people like you said, we've had enough. How many have had enough? All right, very good. With that, let's bring on Matt. Come on up here, Matt.